Cowabunga dudes and dudettes, this is Anthony, aka Batbomb82, and today I'll be doing a review of the Medicom Mafex Knightfall Batman. Now, taking a look at the front, we can see that the figure comes in that standard Mafex window box packaging. Turning the box around, we can see multiple images and panels showcasing the figure in multiple posing positions with its different interchangeable parts and accessories. So with the box out of the way, let's go ahead and crack this figure open and let him breathe. Alright guys, now let's take a closer look at this new Mafex Knightfall Batman. Now this has been one of my most anticipated Mafex figures pretty much ever. I have been dying for just a super dope version of this Knightfall Batman, and it's finally here, and man, he does not disappoint. This honestly might be one of my favorite Batman figures in my collection, and trust me, I have a lot. This thing is so uber 90s with its ridiculous pouches and over-the-top extreme looks that we used to have in the back in the day, but comic books were such a weird time back then, right? For those of us that read comics in the 90s, but this is such a crazy looking design, and I love it, man. It's not going to be for everybody, but for me, you know, I grew up in those days reading these comics. That storyline was insane, and I'm so glad to finally have this. So taking a closer look here, first of all, I think that head sculpt is so good. The blue that they use here, this really nice metallic blue, looks so freaking good, man. The red eyes look awesome. I love the cowl. You can see the ears kind of peeking through there. These little cowl, or excuse me, the little spiked ears at the top, all look really, really good. With that high collar and those shoulder pads. Even the neck looks really nice too. You can see it's really fully sculpted like there as well. I love this, man. The paint apps are great on this whole thing. So you got like the gold accents in there. His crazy gold armor for some reason. I remember first seeing this in comics. I was like, why is he rocking gold armor? You know, he was always supposed to be like dark and stealthy kind of thing, but nope, this guy's very gaudy. This isn't Bruce Wayne. His abs are shiny AF. I mean, that's really cool. These gauntlets are so dope, man. This is always one of my favorite aspects of this Batman, is this dude has these awesome gauntlets with his slick blades on there. The claws on there look super awesome too. Again, all these crazy pouches all throughout the back. You can see the back of the figure like so, looking really good. I do wish there was a little more paint on these pouches here, because they're just pretty much just cast in this yellow. The one around the leg here has a little bit of a wash in there, but the belt itself does look a little bit plain. And you can see the legs are pretty much just a simple gray, again with those crazy blades on there. So weird. And then we do get a soft goods cape, which I do like as well. This thing does have bendy wire in it, so you can pose it around and do all kinds of cool things with it. I mean, you can get some crazy stuff out of there, and you'll see pictures a little later. But I think just as far as the look of this figure goes, man, this is one that I have been wanting for quite some time. Now, I do have this one right here. This is the one from DC Direct. For the longest time, this was like pretty much the definitive version of this Knightfall Batman. But it's very basic. It's very dated, you know what I mean? The articulation is very simple, you know, forward with the legs back and forth, bend at the knee. Arms can kind of go forward, out, single bend at the elbow that barely bends like that, and then rotation at the wrist, and then like a head joint that barely moves, you know what I mean? So you couldn't get anything super dynamic out of it, but still really, really like this figure. You know, I still love that dark blue used, that really nice dark metallic blue used for the gauntlets, and the helmet and the armor and things like that. The paint apps still look really great on this guy, but as you can see, he's like black, or instead it's supposed to be more like a gray. But I mean, there were different iterations of the suit and things like that. But I always loved this thick, like almost like rubbery type of cape. I always thought this thing was really awesome. So seeing these side by side, again, this was one of my favorite ones for the longest time. But this one, man, Jesus Christ, this is a freaking work of art. So now moving on to accessories here, we're going to see all kinds of interchangeable hands. So we do get a pair of close to fisted hands. Those are the ones that come packaged in the box. We actually do get gripping hands. for some reason, but he doesn't actually come with any accessories to actually grip, but they are there if you want to do something with him, maybe swinging around buildings, I don't know. But we also do have a little more loose fingered hands like that, almost like a slashing effect or a clawing or something like that. But then my favorite ones are going to be the ones with the more flared out clawed hands. I think these look so cool, just for those action poses and things like that. And that was always one of my favorite aspects of this particular design, just the fact that this dude has some crazy claws on him. You know, there's standard pegs like this. They do fit a little loose. I wish they were a little tighter, but I mean, they're not going to fall out or nothing. They're not going to go flying around, but I did notice when I'm posing them around, I have been able to take them off pretty easily, but nothing too crazy. I just think that looks so dope, man. The paint on those really nice, shiny silver claws, I think it's rad, man. Give me freaking, what's his name? Not Wolverine, but fucking Ripclaw. Ripclaw, a run for his money. I freaking love that, man. So that's really cool, too. What I think is really rad is that he comes with his batarang shooting effect pieces, because these gauntlets would actually shoot batarangs. So you get two of these little effect pieces. You can see little batarangs in there, and you can just slide them inside like that to make it look like he's shooting the batarangs out of the gauntlets like there. I think that's super cool. And again, you get one for each side, so you can do that as well. So I think that's really cool. And again, that was always one of my favorite aspects. The gauntlets were always just so cool to me because they had claws, they had these big blades. He could shoot his batarangs out of there, but also we do get a grapple like that, which looks really nice. And this is a straight up bendy wire like so as well. And then you could take the bottom, the underpiece of the gauntlet, you'll see a little slot in there where you can actually peg the hook in like that, and then make it seem like he's shooting his grapple hook or his grapple gun. Again, super awesome, man. I always loved how this Batman was just functioning. He was just armored up to the T, a little more high tech than your Bruce Wayne Batman was. So I thought that was super cool. But then the final accessory, we're gonna pop this off right here. It's just on a standard ball peg. And we're gonna bring in the Jean-Paul Valley head, which was always crazy to me when I first saw this. I was like, Batman is blonde now? That is so weird. You know, I'm sure that's what it felt like for a lot of people who saw Ben Reilly Spider-Man. Blonde Spider-Man, that's weird. But yeah, I remember as a kid, I was thinking, whoa, Batman as a blonde, that just doesn't look right to me. But this dude, he's crazy and he's kind of an asshole. You know what I mean? So, I don't know, it fit him and he looks like a jerk. You know what I'm saying? But the head sculpt itself is really nice. I love the kind of little curls coming down the forehead like that. There's a bit of wash in there as well. The sculpting of it just looks really good in my opinion. I think they did a fantastic job with that all around, man. And still, if you wanted to pose him with that on your shelf, you can still kind of rock this like a helmet, like him holding his helmet if you want to do something like so. But that looks great, dude. So all the accessories that we do get, again, not a ton, but I mean, you don't really need a whole crazy ton of accessories with this guy. What we do get, I think, is perfect in my opinion. So again, oh my God, I am just loving this figure so much. So one thing I noticed too, that I didn't really notice at first, but I love like the intricacy that we did here. So you got like the red underlining of like the armor there. I think that's super cool, as well as like inside the gauntlets, you can see the red inside there. I just think that's super dope, man. That's like really good attention to detail. They could have just left those blue, you know what I mean? But that is more comic accurate, so I love how they actually did that. I think that's just crazy cool. And again, a lot of color for a Batman figure, right? That's kind of rare when we see Batman with so much color, but it freaking works for some odd reason to me. So it is what it is. But anyways, let's move on to the articulation here. The neck and the head are on separate ball pegs, so you get a lot of good motion there. Of course, this whole collar piece is going to hinder it a bit. So you're going to kind of turn to the left, and it's going to have to look over that collar. So you can look left and right, up and down like so, and then pivot side to side. So a decent amount of motion there. Arts on ball pegs, again, will be hindered by the armor here, so they kind of have to flare out, but you can do a full 360. And does seem to be a double ball peg inside there, as well as a butterfly joint in there. So you can do all kinds of crazy things. You can roll around there, whatever you got to do. But again, just keep in mind, this is a pretty solid piece of plastic. It is not like rubber and like that, so it's going to hinder that a bit. We can rotation at the bicep right there at that cut. We get a double joint at the elbow like so. That can bend, looks like a little past 90. Rotation at the wrist, as well as a hinge at the wrist. We do get a double ball peg that goes into the upper torso, and then another one that goes down into the crotch area. So you get a ton of motion there. Does turn left and right, pivot side to side, crunches all the way back right there. You see a little bit of gapping. You can kind of like cover that up like so, so that works out pretty good. And then crunch all the way forward. I mean, you can bend forward pretty much all the way, so that's actually really good as well. This belt seems to be like, I don't know if it's on a little peg or some kind of clamp on there, but it does seem to be non-removable. It looks like maybe you could if you really wanted to, but I don't really want to risk it. But it is a rubbery separate piece, so it can move out of the way if necessary. The hip joints can kick forward that far like so. We also do get the pull down feature like that. You can pull this down and kick up even more like that, so that's really good. Do the splits all the way out like so. Rotation in the upper thigh. We got double jointed knees. Ankles go up, down, a sweet ankle rocker, and then we do get toe articulation. So overall, I'm so happy with this. I kind of want to just pick up a second one just to keep in box because, you know, I've said this before, Mafex has come such a long way because they were utter trash. I used to bash Mafex for so long, up until like really recently. I'm talking like the past like couple years. And some people say before, for me, just the past couple years, they've really won me over. They've beaten out a lot of companies. They've come so far as things like their QC issues. I mean, everything about them has gotten so much better, especially their Batman figures, like the more comic book Batman figures. I mean, it's crazy how good they've gotten. But this one right here holds a special place in my heart, as this storyline was just something that really hit me as a kid. It was so life-changing. Like, wow, I don't know, they can do this in comic books, and Batman could be someone else, and they can change his look this drastically. That's really crazy to me. But as a kid, I loved it. It's so weird, so awesome, so 90s, and definitely a must-get. So for a quick size comparison, here he is standing next to a Marvel Legends Deadpool and McFarlane Batman figure. Also for comparison, here he is standing next to a couple other Mafex Batman figures. And for even more comparison, here he is standing next to a couple other Nightfall Batmans, being from DC Direct and Mattel. And I do have the blue version, I just couldn't find one, but hey, the red one is just as cool. And just for fun, here he is with little Lego Bat Bomb. So there it is, guys, my review of the Medicom Mafex Knightfall Batman. Now, man, this is just one that I feel like I've been waiting for over 30 years. And this piece is just so badass. Like I've said, Mafex has really been stepping up their game over the past few years, especially when it comes to the more comic book accurate like figures. And damn, this has got to be one of, if not my favorite Mafex Batman or Mafex figure that I've ever owned. The paint apps are so gorgeous with those metallic blues, the golds, the silvers, all look fantastic. The sculpt itself just looks perfect, very accurate to the comic book. I absolutely love the articulation. You could do pretty much anything. Of course, there are going to be some hindrances with the neck as far as that collar goes, and the shoulders as far as that whole shoulder pads go. I get that. There are going to be some issues there, but everything else works out very, very well. And also absolutely love the giant wired cape where you can do pretty much anything you want to do. I think it's just gorgeous. But man, this is just a beautiful piece. Again, if you love those books at all, and again, I know they were crazy 90s comics, which didn't make a whole lot of sense, but I loved it. It was one of my favorite storylines of all time. I think John Paul Valley is a complete psychopath, but I mean, he's canon, man, and I think he's such a cool character. One of my favorite looks for Batman, and in my opinion, he would look great in any of your collections. So be excellent to each other, and stay nerdy, my friends. Peace.